Well, that's not going to do anybody any good.
No,
We're
I
we're
agree.
we're live now,
Okay,
just so you know. But
I'll stop swearing.
no, go ahead and do whatever you want to do. Let's see. Let me see.
I'd just
Yeah, I
like to
couldn't.
say how much I'm enjoying the shows. You know, they're absolutely fantastic at the moment. I try and get to see as many as possible. I'm up early in the morning. I wake up about 3:30 to 4 o'clock in the morning and try and tune in straight away while I'm lying there, you know. And
You wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
yeah, have done for years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to bed early, but always wake up 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. That's when I get most of my work done.
Yeah, that's true. That's a true statement. I can't. I typically no. I can't do that. I haven't. I had. There's been times I've done it, but typically I stay up later.
It's because I'm so highly spiritually evolved, you see.
I know. You're right up there with the Dalai Lama and Mother Teresa at this
Absolutely. I look like Mother Teresa, but talk like the Dalai Lama.
point. You talk like John Lennon. That's because you're from Liverpool.
Okay.
Yeah. You're from Liverpool, right?
I'm from near Liverpool. It's where I'm from. It's called the Wirral. It's dead posh, as you can tell by my accent.
It's
You know,
it's what? Dead
it's
posh.
very posh. You know, that means a very
Oh,
high class.
posh.
Posh.
Oh,
Yeah. Port
yes.
out, starboard home.
There you go. There you go. Okay, so we got 30 people in the house. Yeah,
Great.
got a whole bunch of people. Must be your Billy Walker. Must be your friend. I've never seen that name before.
Yeah, Billy Walker, one of my friends.
Yeah, Belinda Frank, Donna Davins, Sophie Thornalley, Matu Raj here, Paul Handwriter, Jeannie Agosta, John Montgomery, Sheila Sen, Allison Robertson, Denise Chadwick, Prudence was in the house. She puts out really good stuff every day. Cindy Fink, Lisa Maria, Pauline Kudajar, Lillian Howard's here, Naveen, Sheree Miles. All right. So I noticed, let's see, who was that? Sheila Sen had sent me a message recommending somebody to be on the show. And I just wanted to say thank you for everyone that's doing that and anyone that's stepping up and asking to be on the show. And I just want to also tell everybody there's got to be 150 of them. So we're going to get to them as quick as we can, which is why we're working on expanding this thing so we can have more hosts and more channels. But yeah, just keep sending everything, and thank you for the continued love, support, and contributions. Today we got what is this, round 3?
Yeah.
Round three with a good doctor. He came out on the first show wearing a diaper, and by the time I resurrected him, he's now in those cloth diapers. And hopefully after this show, he'll be wearing big boy undies.
Yeah. I feel like Lazarus, you know.
Lazarus. So, what'd you have in mind today? Welcome to the show.
No idea what you want to talk about. We can talk about anything you like, really. But I was going to call it Getting Real with Dr. Joe, you know, because I love raw authenticity. I like that phrase.
Yeah.
And leading a rawsome life, you know. But just talk about my own experience of when I thought I was being real. I wasn't. I was fooling myself, you know. And as I mentioned to you last time, you know, I don't want to fool myself anymore, Todd. You know, I don't want to fool anybody else. I just want to live in what is real for me, you know. And I consider that the way that you know that you're living a real life is by the way that you feel. We talked a lot last time, if you remember, about the F-off approach to health and happiness, you know, focus on feelings first. And to me, I think that you know, we live in the world that it is now, especially in the Western world, and with all the information technology, we live a very audio-visual life, and we've sort of cut ourselves off at the throat, you know, and we've disconnected from those other feelings, which are kinesthetic. That's the technical word for touch, and, you know, body feeling. Olfactory, that's smell.
Kinesthetic.
Kinesthetic, yeah, that's the technical way to say touch.
So,
and then olfactory. Sorry, mate.
Was I getting kinesthetic with Morgan last night when she slapped me?
You may well have been, but if there was no physical contact, no, that was a sacred thing that went on. I was trying to
No,
be dead serious there, and you
I
like
know. I'm
cut me off.
kidding. No.
Yeah.
So keep going with this. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is we've got five senses. We've got, I'll say the technical terms: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory, and then smell and taste. And what seems to be happening is we're moving more and more into audio visual, and we're becoming more head dominated, really, and we've lost touch with those other three senses. Touch, the power of human touch, smell, and taste as well. And it's a well-known fact among psychologists and scientists that when people are stressed, they taste less because their saliva and their digestive system doesn't work properly, you see, because all the blood that's supposed to be going into our digestion, right, actually is in our muscles waiting to punch somebody, you see. Because when we're in stress, whether we consciously know it or unconsciously know it, we're living what's called in a defense arousal state. And 95% of the world is living in this fear or threat dominated defense state. Most of our choices, whether we like it or not, whether our head tells us different things, are basically defensive stances based from fear conditioning. And when I started to wake up to that, and find techniques, or was shown techniques to disentangle myself from this, the more fear I stepped through, the more my vision expanded, and the more real and wonderful life became, because I was always looking out there, I was always looking right on the defensive, just in case. I hope this person doesn't say this. And so I was always planning, if this happens, that's what I'm going to do, So I was basically using the patterns of the past to predict what might happen in the future. And
Yeah.
generally speaking, none of those things came true. And what
Yeah.
I'd do is, and this is a sneaky trick of the ego, one out of a million things would come true, and I'd focus on that one to say, I told you, see. So my focus was always on emotional sensitivity. And as I mentioned in our last talk, I realized I was emotionally sensitive, but emotionally immature as well. And I had to come to terms with that basically I was a tiny, frightened child in a horrible sort of frightening world, just ducking and diving and dodging and weaving and trying to protect myself all the time.
Mm. So do you think we're moving out of that now? I mean,
No doubt about it.
yeah, I think, especially like with the rising of the recognition of the empath and the empathetic, abilities, because they overfelt, they had to deal with overfeeling basically,
Yeah.
and feeling everybody's stuff and their own stuff, superly enhanced. So that's
Yeah, and I think, sorry, mate.
No, I was just gonna say. So that seems to have taken an evolution over the last 3-4 years. I remember when they were really thick with, hey, I'm not doing well. I'm an empath, and there was a lot of support groups, and now they seem to be stepping into their power.
I think they're stepping into the power because they're realizing. I mean, like Jason said last week, I like Jason. He's nice. He's direct. He's straightforward. He's in right on the ball, And he said most empaths are basically energy or psychic vampires. And I can see that now. There's a complete difference between sympathy, empathy, and compassion. And I think that there are three various phases of what all humans go through this. I teach, from my experience about the 7 stages of human development. And I know, people say, well, there's 10 stages, there's 12. Well, 7's okay with me because I can realign it with the 7 chakras of Eastern philosophy, and I'm trying to align it, as I mentioned last time, with the 7 major endocrine glands, So that's what I go from. But, different people have different numbers. They have different interpretations. I found that most of us fall out. We're saying the same things, but we're using different labels, and we just fall out over the labels that we're using, And I don't know where I was going with that, but what I'm trying to say is that, oh yeah, as we go through life, we're first born, we're very egocentric, you know, that's a child, you know, it's defensive. As we then progress through life, we become more ecocentric, if you like. We start to go outwards, and what's supposed to happen in a balanced way, we're supposed to expand our vision, you know, transcend, but also include former stages, because what tends to happen is we evolve, if you like, we grow, right? But some people get stuck at that childlike stage of development, and they grow horizontally. So they grow in years. They grow from 0 to say 85 years, but they don't grow up at all. And many people on the planet are sort of stuck at 7 years of age. They're using the emotional and coping skills of 7-year-olds in adult bodies. And that's exactly where I was, that I was always using those childlike or playground tactics to get through life. And so no wonder I was always ducking and diving and dodging and weaving, you know. And what happened is when I drank, you know, and when I drank enough, temporarily, the learning was disinhibited, and it freed up all this energy that was suppressed and repressed from all that time. And I firmly believe, based upon my experience and from the experience of many thousands of people that I've talked to, that addictive behaviors are based in emotional insecurity and misunderstanding of our energy systems, you know. And it's the feeling that goes with the release. That's the thing that people get addicted to. They're always looking for that first flush and that first release, you know. And I didn't know I was going to talk about this tonight, but I can see more and more now as this tidal wave of love comes in. It's a releasing energy, and people are becoming more and more furious, if you like, about how they've allowed themselves to be conned into some sort of slave mentality. One big thing with me is, you know, my thing is, it's all very well knowing all this, Todd, but if you don't actually take some action on walking through the fear and grounding it and growing up vertically. So this is not just about horizontal growth, it's about vertical transition as well. And if you like, ascension, you know, into your whole self. And I'd just like to say before I forget here, the human is the hero, but spirit, soul, you know, and I call soul, I speak to my soul. To me, soul is the source of unconditional love. That's what soul means to me. And when I'm talking to my higher self, right, it's my soul that I'm asking and talking to, you know. And I think unless we actually go through those full 7 stages of development, we can't be fully human. So to me, the best way forward, in my opinion, is to understand that both the masculine and the feminine need to meet in the heart. And it's in that middle point that both have equal share of developing, if you like, this sacred child. You know, that's where my sort of understanding is with things at the moment. So it's not just about the human, it's about the divine and the human working in harmony. And what I like is it's the we approach, you know, it is all about we. And so me inverted becomes we, and then they meet together then.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just, you know, I just see it as you can't do it without the human. I mean, the human is the primary focus here, and the human is soul, and the human is spirit. It's just a matter of us making that conversion. I like one of the things that you said. You said we start growing up and going out there, and we're supposed to take all of our parts with us. Yeah. And I'm picturing that, and we're supposed to take our 2-year-old and our 3-year-old and our 4-year-old and our 5-year-old and all of the year-olds with us each step of the way, which would make sense. But at the same time, then you're saying many of us, including you, got stuck in a pre-adolescent or adolescent age with coping challenges.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of an interesting way to look at it, because then we're going back and searching for that child that we want to nurture, as you just explained, with the masculine and feminine meeting in the heart. Yeah.
I have a picture of, you know, the divine coming back and holding its hand out and taking the child, and they're both walking back through the areas where the child ducked and dived and didn't go through where he was supposed to, you know. And that, you know, the child's the emotional self, the way I see it, and the physical self get back together again, guided by the higher power or by the soul, and then on the soul's choosing, right, they then go back and look at a particular area each day, another area of breakthrough. And as I mentioned before, is once you break through something that's been hiding in your psyche for a long time, once you take the action to disentangle yourself from the obstruction, then loads more energy floods into your system, and then we can go forward then. And I think I mentioned last time, I've developed this approach called the I am approach. And the technical term, it's a deliberately developmental. That means when you take the action, you grow up, right? Mindfulness-based stress re-education program. And the I am stands for internal asset management. And again, what that means is the assets are our instincts. And most of us have been blocked, and we've been blocked by faulty logic and misdirected instinct. And that's, in my opinion, what's causing most of the problems on the planet. And people now are they're being faced now with where they've developed their logic to misdirect their instinct so that they don't have to face themselves. But nobody, in my view, nobody's going to get away with this. However, there is a solution to be guided through it, and that's called opening the heart and conversing directly with the soul and asking it for guidance. I don't believe that we can tell the soul what to do. I think that we've got to surrender and say, oh, all right then, right, give us a clue, show us what I need to do here now. And when we surrender and accept that the souls may be a bit more wise than ourselves, then things start to fall in place then.
Yeah. In the context that you're using it, I believe that. If you're saying like, and it is labels and names and semantics that are, shouldn't separate us at all. But yeah, I think it's more than we're not going to tell it what to do. It's actually got it laid out for us and trying to give us clues to go to go towards our heart's desires that are embedded in pure intention. Yeah, I absolutely believe that. Although we have this free will, and it is seem to be getting louder for people when they ignore what is ultimately their own heart.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the way I look at things now, and I could be wrong, mate, because I'm only learning like everybody else, but the way I see it is we sign before we incarnate. We sign a soul contract, we're sitting there at the curriculum development department of souls, and there's all sorts of like wise souls around us to say, you've done quite well up to now. Soul number 143559, you've done very, very well, but what do you want to do next, and this soul whose number I've just forgotten, this soul who's a cocky bugger, he says, that alcoholic one looks quite interesting. I think I'll pick that one. And they go, whoa, hang on a second, son. That's dead hard, that one. That's really, really difficult. Are you sure you want to choose that one? Because they say, when you press that button and you sign the curriculum thing, you're not going to remember what you chose here. And the first half of your life is going to be like hell, And cocky soul says, oh, no, I can handle it. Pride comes in. And
you were there. You were there. You must have been there when I had that conversation before I came down.
Listen, mate, we've been classmates together for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So you press the button and wah, out we come out as a screaming child, and stuff like that, and we enter this game of life, and it's almost like in the first half or so of our life, we construct the prison, that we selected. That's called the soul's curriculum. And then we get to a point where we go through the dark night of the soul, and where I went to is the point of suicide, because I just didn't have a clue what was going on. And I was turned round by the curriculum manager who came to visit me at that point to say, look, here's the contract you signed, stop moaning, turn round, right, and get on with it, because you said you wanted to do this, but we tried to warn you, So anyway, I was turned round, and from that point then, I started what I call the journey of quantum disentanglement, because I like messing around with quantum physics terms and stuff like that, And so over the last nearly 27 years, I've been walking, I'm being guided, because every morning, Todd, I put my hands on my heart and I sense that connection, And this is what I'd like to say is, there are simple techniques that people can use to get right back in touch with their guidance. And if I just show you this, I'll just go down here a second.
Yeah.
Right, look at this. This is my I am logo. Look, I've become like a professional type person now. And I've got my
That's
own
awesome.
logo.
I love
Yeah,
the colors.
Yeah, well, the colors are red, green, and violet, you see, because they represent the ascending colors of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Wow.
Marvelous. Anyway, I digress as always. If you put your hand on your heart and you put your other hand on your heart and you're just imagining that you're cradling a beautiful sacred child, you know, and I mentioned this last time, and you really get the sense that you can feel that you're cradling a beautiful, loving child. Or if you don't like children, you can say a pet, you know, or something that means something to you. And you sort of bring it to your heart. If then you can relax nice and gently. Do you want to do this while we're doing it? Do you want to do this? Okay. So if maybe if everybody could do this and just, you know, bear with me and just, if you want to, just close your eyes and just get a sense that you're feeling a beautiful, warm, gentle energy just coming in and out from the palm of your hand. And just gently breathe all the way in. And as you breathe in, just collect any stress and tension that's in the heart area. Stop for a second. And as you breathe out, just imagine that you're giving all the stress and tension that's accumulated back out to the universe. And as you breathe in again, just breathe that beautiful, warm, gentle feeling. Collect any stress and tension anywhere inside your body. And then on the out breath, just breathe it back out to the universe. And just bear with me on this. Now that you've got that simple technique, just allow your breath to come and go nice and gently. It's very important that the in breath and the out breath are of the same length. That's very important, that. So breathe all the way in. Collect any stress and tension. And as you breathe out, you can feel that you're sinking deeper and deeper and deeper into a beautiful state of peace and relaxation and total security and total freedom. One more, all the way in. Search for any stress and tension. And as you breathe out, just allow that to go out without obstruction back to the universe. And just come back nice and gently now. Now we just did 4 rounds of breathing there, but I teach something called mindful breathing, and people say, you know, I can't do that meditation thing, you know, and it's not meditation really, it's just being reconnected with your body's awareness. It's almost like the more that you do this and the more that you sink into it, the more space you get to observe your own actions, really. So to me, it's just about self-awareness, because I went in my journey, if you like, I went to many meditation teachers, and many of them said, and I thought there was something wrong with me. I know there's a lot wrong with me, you know, but I'm working on it. But I thought, you know, they used to say, just be quiet now, close your eyes and clear your mind. And when they said clear your mind, you know, I'd be thinking, how do you clear your mind? So that obviously wasn't working, because they were giving me an instruction. I was trying to work out with my head what was going on, and therefore couldn't understand and couldn't get into it. And then one day I was shown that, right, if you focus on a feeling first and you get the sensation of your breath and your feeling, then the more that you practice this, the more that your mind clears automatically. And I've had to persevere with this. But honestly, Todd, if it works for others like it worked for me, 3 10-minute sessions in a nice quiet place with some nice music that resonates with your heartstrings, and if you just persevere, 3 10-minute sessions a day, I swear to you that your life will start to improve beyond all that you can imagine. Because to me, what happens is you will hit that still point. The gates of your heart will open. That's the masculine and the feminine. They will coincide and cooperate with one another. The gates will open, and you'll have direct access then to all the wisdom of the universe.
We're just really taking some alone time and then connecting with yourself, right?
Yeah. And this is a quick fire, short, sharp. If you're stressed and you've got chronic muscle tension and your fists are tense and your teeth are tense and stuff like that, you can just detach using this technique and disentangle yourself and emotionally detach, and then be brought back to balance then. And I would say to people is don't make any decisions when you're stressed and tense, because that will be a defensive decision. You may gain some release temporarily, but over the long term, it's still a coping mechanism and you're not facing things, in the way I explain things.
Okay. So I actually try to do that with the Clash at least twice a day. The Clash from.
Yeah, I know them well. Honestly, mate, it's whatever works for you.
I know I like something that has a really good riff in it.
Yeah,
a really good beat. You said something about when you connect in that fashion, we'll just call it meditating or communing with yourself, that you focus on the breath. I've heard that before, but focusing on your feelings, I've never heard that before. And it makes sense. It makes sense to me. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's something I've sort of adapted. I don't think I made it up, but it's using a positive emotion. And what tends to happen is when you're breathing in a positive emotion, it then disentangles you then from the fight or flight response. Because any human being, if they perceive a threat, whether consciously or unconsciously, and the other thing is, most people don't think that they're in threat state, but that's because they're just using their conscious mind to analyze things. Once you get back in touch with your body, you can realize there's 4/5 of the processing going on below our consciousness. And people say, well, no, that doesn't happen to me. And I'll say, well, hang on a second, right? I've just said it's below your consciousness. You're not even aware of it. And that's where I was for years. I was like a head on a stick, thinking I knew what was going on, a knowledgeable idiot. But really, about what was really going on, I didn't have a clue.
Were you going to let an F-bomb fly right there?
No, that's just your perception of what was coming out there.
But I like what you said that about the feelings, because I know, like, doing these shows, sometimes there's a lot of shows over a period of time, might do, whatever, 10, 12 in 3 days or something, whatever. But so I have different, like everybody. I don't have mood swings, but I have, sometimes you feel this way, sometimes you feel that way, sometimes you're tired. Sometimes you're mad at the guy for making man breast jokes about you before you were on before.
Well, don't make it to yourself now,
But the thing is I used to get on the show and I would be like 1, 2, 3, go. And then I jump into this mask, right? So, I'm probably being a little overly harsh on myself, but then I started just to bring in the emotions I had. Pretty much. If, whatever I was feeling, I just maybe didn't broadcast it, but at least leveled it off and just didn't run from it. And that seems to work. It's just kind of a comparable thing, which has actually worked for me. So, I don't try to run from how I'm feeling, although there's been a couple times where I have to like reboot.
Yeah.
But that's similar to that meditation you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think what happens is as you practice more and more, you start to become more aware of your body sensations to the fight or flight response. And there are basically 7 different muscular reactions that happen based upon the 7 chakras. Now, some people, they tense their heads like that, they go right up into their thinking and they use this here, and so they become very, very tense across the eyes. They can get migraine headaches and stuff. And then as we drop down, then people get eye strain, their vision starts to go and all this sort of thing. The strongest muscular response on the body is the jaw. It's the biting response. It's where, the animal part of us, if we have one, the animal part of us responds by biting its opponent's throat out. And people who suffer from that tension, they mightn't even be aware that it's building up. What they do is they can have things like nocturnal bruxism, it's called. It's grinding your teeth at nighttime, because as you relax and you do eventually go to sleep, people start to grind their teeth to try and release all that tension in the day, you know. So
I did it for years. I did
yeah,
it for
well,
years. I
yeah,
did it for like 10, 12 years.
well, people can get terrible headaches with that as well. I mean, and when I see people, you know, and we palpate, you know, we push, you can tell where people are actually in chronic muscle tension. Here's a little tip for people, and I'll move on to the next bit in a minute. If you push a muscle with any pressure at all, right, there shouldn't be any pain. There should be pressure, but you shouldn't feel any pain. If there's any pain, it means that your muscle is shortened. You've got chronic muscle tension. And you need to do, like I said last time, hatha yoga or some sort of stretching exercises, right, to rebalance and put the muscle back into its normal position. Because if you don't, and your soul's trying to come through, or your light body, where it gets obstructed, you will feel pain in that area. So in a way, pain is the touchstone of recovery. It's a touchstone, and it lets you know where the soul's trying to come through and de-obstruct you. So if you feel pain, all complementary therapists will tell you this, that pain in complementary medicine is just where the vital energy or the spirit is blocked from going any further through the physical body. So pain's a good sign, you know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, are certain parts of the body associated with certain parts of the energy body, like the jaw, to what area
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
physical body?
Yeah, the seven chakras, you know, so the different chakras, so you can get an idea of the spiritual state, the psychological state, and the physical state. So if you've got a pain in a particular area of your body, like your solar plexus, for example, that's representative of personal power. And people who have pain and digestive problems are generally blocked from expressing their own personal power. And when I say expressing it, I don't mean to hurt anybody else, but sometimes along with the throat, the solar plexus and the throat work together, but sometimes the grip comes in and wants to express itself, but the throat closes it back down again. So if you can imagine a flow of water trying to come out, and then somebody standing on the hose pipe, all that pressure that's building up will go backwards and it will cause physical pain. So to me, physical pain in spiritual growth represents an obstruction. So the next thing would be to do mindfully take a step back, open up your heart, have a direct link to the soul, and say to the soul, dear soul, or however you want to talk to your higher self, can you please show me the lesson that I need to learn here? Do I need to take a particular action? Do I need to go and apologize? Can you please give me a clue? And sometimes you'll get, not there and then, sometimes as you're walking along then in the day, some piece of music will come on. You'll read something, even in a comic or a paper, and it'll go ding-ling-lingle, you know. And then if it's a fear, you'll try and dismiss it. And then as you go further down the road, it'll come up again and louder, you know, and 3 times it'll go, you know, like 3 times in denial, then get the message, you know. So what I'm trying to get across here in a sort of clumsy way is any physical pain or obstruction or tension, it's your soul trying to say, hang on a second, we've just had an ego threat here. The tension is associated with an ego contraction. Stop, step back, have a look at it, see what needs to be done. Yeah. And it might be that you've got to go and apologize to somebody, and the little child in you will say, oh, no, I don't need to do that. Oh, no, you know, whoa, right. And in the end, something will say to you, yes, you do. And here's the thing. This is what I've learned, right? Once you take the action, the physical pain goes away, right? And then you start to evolve, ascend, and grow up. And sometimes if you don't do it, if you only do it half-heartedly, the same lesson will come back like Groundhog Day, and you'll just have to repeat it until the channel then is fully flowing. So the way I see it, Todd, soul is the light body, works through the chakras, works through the meridian systems, works through the nadis, goes in then through the nervous system, and then flushes through. And I think that that's what's happening. People are becoming more light, because the energy bodies are working, they're spiritualizing their physical bodies, their halos are growing, but they're feeling lighter in themselves because it's almost like a levitation response, really. So they're countering the effects of gravity by allowing the light body to come through, and the light body showing them how to overcome fear by taking actions that they never chose early on in their lives.
I like that comment. They're counter affecting the gravity.
Yeah.
That's a true statement.
Yeah.
We may not be in the way we would think of gravity, but we're lighter. We become lighter, which gravity is a lot more than what that holds us to the ground, right?
Well, no, I think, metaphorically, I mean, they're connected, because, when you're serious, you're grave, aren't you? You're very responsible, and that's why I laugh and joke and take the piss a lot, because I spent that many years under the effects of gravity, and it was taking me to my grave, and so levity, which means lightheartedness, right? Lightheartedness and humor, right? That's, most of us have lost our touch to that, really. And that's why I get on loads of people's nerves, and it makes me happy, because they're so serious and blocked in their old egomania that they can't, especially in academia where I work, we're all supposed to be very serious, responsible looking people, I can't do that anymore, because I've always had a joker in me, like the heyoka. I've always had that joker in me, and I've allowed people they didn't do it to me, but I allowed them to talk me out of that. And I sort of turned into a miserable, responsible, right, individual, who completely lost touch with the beauty of nature, and everything was a drudge. I just used to drudge, trying to do what I thought was the right thing. That was definitely the wrong thing.
You became a drone, man. You became like a robot. We became like robots.
Yeah, so, and that's the whole thing, and my job is to try and help to shake people out of that, not to tell them what to do, but just sort of explain that this is what I went through. If you can resonate with this, maybe I'm not telling anybody, I'm making suggestions. Maybe if you try some of this, right, you might lighten up yourself, you miserable bastard. And then I run away quickly then, because I'm pretty fit, really, so I'll run away quickly.
Well, depends on if I'm chasing you. Then you'll really be
if you were chasing me, I could walk away quicker than you could get me.
So but yeah, going back to the body. So the body gives us these signals. You gave us a great way of checking the body for maintenance, like pressing on a muscle. If it's painful, or I guess even tense, then there's something happening. And then the next question is, what is that's happening? And so you talk about asking the spirit, asking the soul, asking your higher self, whatever you want to call it. You can also pull that part of the body up before you. Do you ever do that? I mean, can you pull up your sore ankle and say, what is this about? And speak to that part of your body.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of people do this. There's a technique called autogenic training, where you can actually take your consciousness into that part, leave your consciousness there, and ask that part directly. Can I just? There's something called the fusion of the 5 elements, and it's by a teacher called Master Mantak Chia, right? And he talks about all this stuff. I've read a lot of his stuff over the years, but it's corresponded what was happening in me, because once I started to spiritually awaken it or understand it, I got in touch with my energy body then, and I could start to feel these different movements going on in my body, and some parts this is Kundalini rising, this really, or it's the path of Tantra and stuff like this, and people misunderstand that. But I'll go back. Mantak Chia in his books, right, explains all the different gates. It's Chinese, traditional Chinese medicine, but he explains all the gates that come out from all the different energy centers. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And he talks about the use of sound, the use of light, the use of movement, the use of meditation. And he talks about a microcosmic orbit. That's a circulation of energy within the human body. And then as the crown chakra opens, we get in touch with what's called the macrocosmic orbit. And then, what actually happens is then there's an influx then of information which gives you more ideas on actions to take, which take you further into this evolution process. So Mantak Chia, Chia. There's loads of YouTube videos on him. He's a lovely, lovely man. You can just sense his calmness and his mastery. So I'm just suggesting maybe some people might like to do that.
Yeah, and like you've taken some stuff, or you've taken the body of work that you've learned from and read about and studied, and you've developed your own stuff. And I mean, so I agree with you. I think if you need, people need somewhere to start. There's plenty of places to start, plenty of methods. But ultimately, are we all moving towards, physician, heal thyself, being our own teacher, pulling our own information directly from infinite intelligence as to what we need, what's wrong with us, and so on.
I think we are all moving towards that, but it's the escalated, isn't it? I think, if there's somebody who's a few steps ahead and has found something that works, there's no problem of suggesting to, not telling them, but suggesting to other people, I've tried this. I think the thing is, if you share your experience and your strength, and you say, well, I tried this and this was the result, but I tried that. And this, sometimes it may appear negative, but they may try the thing that didn't work for you, but that did work for them. So in the end, it comes down to choice and trial and error. I think for me, anyway, I can only talk about me. It's all been about trial and error, because in a way, there's no such thing as mistakes. There's just experimentation,
Yeah.
And the old word sin, sin means to miss the target. From the Greek, it means simply to miss the target. It's a mistake, And once I heard that, because I was brought up in environments where it was all about sin. If you breathed in the wrong way, it was a sin, and you were going to hell. If you had any natural feelings, right, you were definitely going to hell, So when the Kundalini started to naturally rise in me, at a certain age, I was already in hell. I became a yoga master, at about 12 years of age, because I'd have all these natural feelings coming up. I'd already been told about them. Expect this. And if you do anything else associated with this, you're going to hell.
Or you grow hair on your hand.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And as I'm saying that's when the throat starts to get used, because this is the organ of repression and suppression. The throat closes, and that's called angustia, which is the root of anxiety, right? So the throat closes, it pushes all this natural energy down, and because it's natural and trying to come out and express itself, right, the energy then is misdirected into various parts of your body, and causes all sorts of other ailments and things like that. So when you go along then and you get a load of ale down here, all this stuff that's been pushed into these different parts of your body comes back centrally and whoosh, So, the first two chakras are about power and sex, So if you've got problems with those and you're repressing that natural energy that's associated with that, then when you become disinhibited through drink and drugs, it all comes back online, and wow, get out the way, baby, I'm coming through, But that's what happens, and it changes your perception. Everybody looks beautiful, you have these rose-colored glasses on, and I don't need to explain that to most of our listeners here.
And the other thing you explained too is that when the body gives you a signal that there's an ego attack, or however you put it, part of the way you can do it is to approach it through your physiology, right? Approach it through the physicality by stretching.
Yeah.
I know that like when my muscles get tense, I know a lot of times I've become more aware I need to drink some water. And I can drink a couple of glasses of water, and in 5 minutes I feel much better. But in terms of like approaching it from an energetic standpoint, what practices do you promote or teach in terms of identifying what is the problem? Where does it really come from? What's the root of the problem?
Same, honest to God, Todd, this is so simple. I go into a quiet place. I put my hands on my heart out, do that snuggling thing, go into that breathing, and when I feel a deep connection, I'll say, what's up here? And I'll just get your shoelaces are too tight. I think, oh, thanks, because I am always looking for some deep spiritual significance. But it's no,
Yeah.
go and have a drink of water, or put some slippers on, or wear some trousers that aren't too tight. And then other times it'll be you told a lie there. Go back and tell somebody that you weren't quite telling the full truth and stuff. So it's growth. The I am approach that I sort of have developed. It's physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. You know, and where we'd go normally to a general practitioner or a doctor. And we go back, we try and solve the physical problem through the physical, right? The best way is to go into the spiritual first, ask for advice, and see which one of those components needs to be worked upon.
Yeah, I had Dwayne Hartman on the other day, and then of course working with Morgan, and here's some other people, where alignment with a future self that's already got it fixed or worked out or healed or whatever you want to call it. Also, Dwayne brought something up that was interesting. He said aligning with your infant child before that child was being told no and restricted and the freedoms blocked and that type of thing, just by simply aligning and taking the thinking out of it.
Yeah.
And just aligning with that, from our standpoint, healed or higher presence or pure presence of ourselves that's actually in this incarnation are going to be. I thought that I've actually used that a few times early on in my relationship with Morgan when she introduced it to me. And I've used it recently. As I've been faced with challenges of where am I going? How's it going to work? What's going to happen? And then I don't know that I've got any clear answers, but what I have gotten is peace, like aligning with that future aspect. And it's just a 5-minute deal. I go away with more peace and go about my day better than I was. So,
and I think what you've just described there is basically what I'm trying to help people to do. I don't know what their answers are to their problems. They do if they go inwards and start to ask something deeper. Now,
yeah.
At one level, there's no separation, there's no inner child, there's no nothing. There's no dimensions. We are all at one. But while we're in this 3D world, we can use that sort of dimensional thing if it helps, because I hear a lot of people I don't have to do that. I can just relax and I'm completely at one. No, they're not, because you can sense that, they just think they are, and I was there for a long, long time, really. I ask my students, I teach this a lot in universities and stuff. And I say to them, what was your name before you were born? And they say, what are you talking about? I say, well, what was your name before you were born? And they'll say, well, I didn't have one. So where did you get your name from? I was given it. What language did you speak before you were born? And I give them half an hour to think about it, and they go, oh, this is too deep. It's too early in the morning for all this, And I say, but what language did you speak? Didn't have one. Okay. What religion were you? Uh-oh. Didn't have one. I say, so when you were born, where did you get all this stuff from? It was given to me. And that's the societal conditioning that comes in. And we defend those things to the death sometimes. We'll fight over them. Someone will call us a different name. We get threatened by it. We fight. That's the start of the defensive posture, Yeah. And the point is, what Dwayne's saying then, in my understanding, is if you can go back before all that conditioning took place, then you're basically working with a pure, unadulterated energy. And I like that. But I'm doing a talk in a couple of weeks' time, and it's basically about the programming that goes on while the child's in the mother's womb, because science now and neuroscience is beginning to show that the mother's emotional state and her nutritional status will actually form the child and will develop its brain pathways, right, before it's had any say in the matter, So how do we then go back then and make sure the environment is pure enough for the child? So that's where I'm up to now. And then even further back than that is, what was the mood state of both individuals at conception? because even that now, the emotional state at conception can impact upon the genetic code as well. So, you
Yeah.
know, to me, what it all comes down to, Todd, if we act in unconditional, or we allow unconditional love to work through us, then the world will be a better place. And I'm absolutely convinced of that. You know, I had the thing the other day that says, you know, in the first stage of humans, it's all about us making love, right? In the second stage of development, when we enter the divine, it's all about love making us. You know, it completely turns around. We surrender. Unconditional love comes through them and shows us how it should be done. And that's my
Yeah.
sort of way of trying to explain things.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that for ourselves too, right?
Yeah. Other techniques to allow the energy body to come through, Kundalini techniques. I teach these. I do a lot of stuff really, but it's really about energetic techniques and relaxation techniques to allow the energy, right, to actually perfuse the body, you know. And these are sort of yoga techniques. I mean, and dancing, we talked last time, you know, I'm still a far better dancer than you are, always will be. But
Well, we're
it's
just gonna have to see about
yeah, yeah.
that.
Oh no, I'm sure we will
Yeah.
do one day. We'll
Oh,
meet and hug, but no
we don't
tongues.
have to meet. We'll just put the camera on, back up a few steps so we can see your
Yeah,
whole body, and we'll see what we can do. We can use it to raise money for charity.
yeah,
How
yeah.
about that?
I don't mind. I don't mind. But the point is,
So,
it's about letting yourself go completely
yeah,
physically. Now, I don't know whether you've ever heard of Osho, right?
Osho.
Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. If there was ever going to be a master that I followed, it would be him. I think I've got every book. He didn't write them; they're just basically discourses on his feelings, you know. And it just blew my mind when I got the first book, you know. And there's 112 different techniques that each individual can use to try and find the one that resonates with their particular soul's vibration, you know. And a lot of people put him down, thought he was some sort of sex guru and all this sort of business. But all he was ever talking about was, right, allowing the sexual energy to get past your belly button, right? Because once it gets past your belly button, then, as you were talking, you know, Morgan, you know, and you together, you know, once it gets past your belly button, it starts to de-obstruct all these other chakras then. And
Yeah,
we go from sex to super conscious. And that's truly where universal consciousness comes in and we're
yeah,
freed. But because we've been so repressed, suppressed, and misguided in that area, it takes a lot for people to break out of that, really. And, you know, so I
yeah,
teach people to, in a sort of a sensitive way, to understand. I call it cleaning up your act, waste management, you know, waste as in WAIST, you know. Once you can get past your waste and allow the energy to come up and use energy techniques, then the whole of the spirit then comes up, flushes you out and gives you freedom, you know. And so that's where I'm up to now.
yeah, yeah. That's a great explanation. That really is. Yeah. Well, when are we going to do the dance contest?
Well, I'll sit down and I'll open my heart and ask, and I know what will happen because I'll ask and I'll just get a big like guffaw that comes through to say, Joe, you know that Todd's better than you. Right?
No, I think it'll tell you no. Don't embarrass Todd. Well, I appreciate you coming back on again.
You're welcome, mate.
We'll get together again as you roll these things out. You're going to do a speech in a couple of weeks, you said, right? On the
Yeah, I'm hoping to have it. I've had one of my workshops videoed.
Mhm.
I'm becoming like a legend now in my own bathroom. You know what I mean? I had somebody professionally video one of the talks I gave, and we're going to try and cut it down into segments and try and put those up.
That would be good. That'd be real
Yeah,
good.
and I'm
That'd
just
be
going to
real good.
try and show people just practical, simple. I'm calling it simplexity. You know, it's taking
Yeah.
complexity and making it simple, really, because in the end, you know, and I love to use big words and big phrases for fun, but in the end, it's breathe like this, feel like this, one step at a time. You know, it's almost become very zen. I'm a bit like you now, is when I answer people's emails and posts, if it goes over 4 words, right, I'm having an off day. You know what I mean?
That's
Normally
right.
it's yes. Normally it's yes and no, or a kiss or something like that. You know,
Yeah.
because in the end, it does come down to managing your own energy and being responsible for how you manage energy, how you spend energy, how you waste energy. It's all about energy. And to me,
Yeah.
that's where the quantum physics thing comes in. We're just basically a fuse, a circuit breaker type thing. We've got the energy coming in from the cosmos. It grounds itself in Earth. It goes all the way back round again. And that's where the flow is. And I think we're just part of a circuit, and the
Yeah.
flow comes through better once the circuit gets reconnected in a correct way. And so I see it
agree.
in terms of energetics now.
Yeah, that's the language that we're speaking and becoming. We've got a really special show in an hour and 5 minutes with Valerie Ames, Mother Wit Wisdom, who I've known since I came off the street 6 years ago. And she's a very phenomenal lady, phenomenal transformational energy, and great teacher, and many, many other things. So if you're not doing anything, come back in an hour and we'll be doing it again. Thanks, Dr. Joe. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks, probably.
You will, mate, and lovely to see you as always. Thanks very much.
All right, see you. Take care.
Toodaloo.